Welcome to Spirit Outspoken, the podcast for Christians who are ready to explore the deeper side of faith. We believe God's truth is bigger than what we've been taught, and that real spirituality isn't something to fear, it's something to discover. Each week, we open the space to explore miracles, energy, healing, consciousness, and divine science, all through the lens of a God who loves us and a faith that's still unfolding. Whether you're deconstructing, rebuilding, or just feeling spiritually stuck, this is your place to reconnect with wonder, deepen your walk, and let the Spirit speak.
This episode is a spiritual gut check, a heart-opening invitation, and a mind-expanding conversation all in one. We're joined by Taylor Perkins, who you might know as the viral sensation Mr. Cult Daddy, as he opens up about the unraveling of his faith, identity, and success. What follows is a conversation about awakening through paradox, plant medicine, sacred union, and the path of radical love. What you seek isn't outside of you, it's already here. Section 1. Identity, irony, and the cost of speaking up. Taylor walks us through the tension between performance and authenticity, and how his online persona sparked unexpected controversy. This segment explores what it costs to speak up, disrupt the narrative, and live in integrity, no matter how it's received.
I am curious, why did you change from Cult Daddy? Was there a reason?
Oh my gosh. I get so many DMs from people primarily around two things. One, being named Cult Daddy, which the reason why I did that was because all truth, especially spiritual truth, requires embracing paradox. It's kind of really tricky for your brain, right? Where you have to hold space for two things that feel like they're opposite, but they're not. They complete each other. There's a ton of performance within the spiritual space. So many people, right? Where it's like channeling light 777, all about creating this kind of like aura of here's what I am, but then sometimes the teachings aren't embodied. And so I'm like, okay, let me pick a name that's not that great, but then if people can see through it, I'll know that I'm at least doing something. Plus, I was like, man, as soon as I start putting this stuff out there, like, especially growing up, super Christian, people are going to say it's the devil, it's Satan, or he's starting a cult. And so I'm like, let me just own this. But it's so funny because, at the end of the videos, a lot of times I'm like, I love you. And I do the sign language for I love you. And I just got so many DMs of people where they're like, what you teach is so good, but you always throw up devil signs and like your name, and I'm like, guys, you're reading way too much into this.
Yeah.
But I did think as the platform was growing, I'm like, okay, it's more important, I guess, to have a username that people feel safe with. And so I decided to take away Cult Daddy, but I just put it back into my actual name because it'll always be a piece of me.
I did see that. Now, it's unfortunate that people don't understand irony, but it's fine. But I got it for what it's worth.
I think a lot of people did where they could see past it. But yeah, it was at that stage where I'm like, all right, I need to be, I guess, a little bit less sarcastic. Because a lot of people too were saying, they're like, I want to share your videos, but I'm afraid to send it to someone and they're going to be like, Cult Daddy, what does that mean? And so I'm like, okay, it's important that people discuss these things. Let's change my new username. Yeah.
No, we get that totally. We've thought a lot about, we did this whole thing about like, we're even scared about identifying as Christian because of what that can mean or the stigma behind it. People are like, oh no, I already know what you're going to say based on how you've just identified yourself. So we get it.
Yeah, totally. Well, that was like this last week I posted a video all about trying to overcome the ideas of perfection because it's like everything is infinitely expanding. And so you're good where you're at. You don't need to beat yourself up for not being perfect because it's like you'll never reach perfection. There's always more. You can always expand just like the universe does. But then I was talking about unity consciousness and Christ consciousness where it's infinitely expanding so it can hold space for everything, which is why we don't need to be the same. And it's like, there's beauty in being different and I can hold space for it and say, we look at things differently. That is totally okay. But it was funny because a lot of people, they're like, I love this, but the fact that you brought up Christ consciousness, why does religion need to be pulled into this? And it's like, guys, you're the one that's associating Christ consciousness with Jesus. It's like, it doesn't mean that. It's so much more. Like, obviously, Jesus, Yeshua, whatever you want to say, his name was, in my opinion, the greatest teacher that's ever walked this earth, right? Like, definitely set the path. Everything he taught, very much true. But it's like, Christ is a title, guys. You're the one that's associating it with religion. And it's like, Christ consciousness exists outside of religion. But yeah, you're totally right. There's so many like frameworks that people put things into, or as soon as they hear something, they want to like stick it in a box. And it's like, how do we break people out of these boxes? Right.
Yeah, just
Totally.
opening people up to listening long enough. Because we
Uh,
found too, so often people it's just like, nope, I'm not part of that. Nope, I don't want any
yeah,
part of that. And it's like we can have a really beautiful conversation if we're just willing to sit and kind of absorb some of
totally.
this, you know? Yeah.
Totally. And that's the whole thing that I'm trying to help people to understand with the expansion mindset is a lot of times people when we think of this where it's like hold space for everything and hold space for diversity, it's just like absolutely I can hold space for diversity except for the Christians because they're so annoying, or except for this group. And it's like, no, guys, it is especially the groups that trigger you. It is
Yeah.
like,
Mhm.
it's like, I get it. You think you are smarter than them. You can point to all of their actions where they are ignorant, where they're hypocrites. And it's like, and a lot of that is very much so true. You see through the illusion for them, but it's a reflection. You have blind spots as well. And if you
Mhm.
will see past your triggers, your blind spots will be illuminated and we can expand together. It's funny because everybody wants the inclusion. Everybody wants the like, let's hold space for everything until they remember that everything means everything. And that means a lot of these different groups that you do not want to hold space for. You look at even like the conflicts that are going on right now, right? And you see so much evil that's going on in the world. And we need to overcome that. Absolutely, we do need to. But also, those people are still expressions of divinity, incredibly asleep, incredibly ignorant, doing evil things. I am not bypassing what they're doing. But if we're holding space for everything, if all separation is illusion, that means they are an expression that comes from human consciousness. There is a reason why this is happening. We can look at it, we can hold space for it, and we can expand past it. But it sure is fun to play the game of illusion where all the good is in me, all the bad is outside of me. Here's where everybody is dumb. And, just keep playing that game of divisiveness. I
I
hope it ends
know.
soon.
True. It's
I
true.
know. It's so true. I was doing a reel one time and I was talking about, you guys, this is on all sides, because,
1,000%.
I would say I tend to be more left leaning, but I'm like, even for us, especially who claim to be so open minded, we're
Yeah.
open minded until we meet someone who's a conservative. And then it's like,
Mhm. Yeah.
hatred and anger and the same thing from the other side. So it's like,
Yeah.
I'll just
Yeah.
chill, listen.
Yeah. We
100%.
talked a lot
Yeah.
about like seeking to understand, not seeking to win. And that's been a
Totally.
really big mindset shift because it's tempting. I mean, we reached out to you when we were getting all that hate on just analyzing the
Mhm.
origins of a scripture and pointing to perhaps an alternative
Yeah.
definition that didn't mean that women should just shut up and stay in the kitchen. God
Yeah.
forbid. And it was like men came out of the woodwork just to prove to us how wrong we were. And it was so
Yeah.
tempting to just fight back. And it like brought up so much emotion and vulnerability with Rachel
Totally.
and I. And we kind of sat with it and we were like, what if we responded with love?
Yeah.
And let's just try that.
Yeah.
And it was nuts what happened. And people were like, oh, wow. Thanks for responding.
Yeah.
Really, like we
Yeah.
really caught them off guard. But the shift
Yeah.
in us is it felt really good to be like, listen,
We-
let's just continue to be the example. We didn't respond to the ones that were like completely unhinged or were just spewing
Yeah.
hates. But the ones that just had a very strong alternative opinion, but it felt like that was anchored in some type of evidence that they had, it was worth understanding where they were coming from, or at least keeping space for that. That was sort of our worst,
Yeah.
or like growing up super Christian. Rachel, when we first started this, Rachel's like, my biggest fear is that somebody's going to tell me I'm going to go to hell. And then like many people told her she was going
Yeah. It's one of those things where it's like even just the doctrine of hell is modern. Jesus did not teach this doctrine of eternal damnation. It is not even found in the scripture. It came from interpretation afterwards that was very obviously to be used as a control mechanism.
Section 2, The Return of the Feminine and Divine Union. Here, Taylor opens up about the Magdalene frequency and the suppression of the sacred feminine. This is a conversation about reclaiming wholeness through divine union, both within and in partnership.
when I was kind of like deconstructing, which I have to put it out there, like I was saying, Yeshua is my dude. Like, he is the man. He is the guy, right? And I believe his story is just as much about him and Mary as it is about him. These Christ consciousness frequencies and Magdalene frequencies are very real things. They are a frequency and a vibration. You look at God being the one, and from the one came two, right? Duality. And obviously, all of us, the first path is to find sovereignty within oneself, to kind of balance the masculine and the feminine, to become that infinite well of energy where you do not need anything from anyone outside of you, right? Where it's like you don't need validation, you don't need confirmation. It is all self-sourced. Once you bring that unity within you, the next path is what some people would call hieroscamos, but it's divine union. And it is a balanced masculine that has controlled his vessel and a balanced feminine. They come together, and it's one of the most spiritual things that you can do, bringing the two together to create the one. It is incredible. I truly believe this is like a big thing that's coming back in a big way right now, is some of these ancient things that have been suppressed, because when the balanced masculine, balanced feminine come together, a lot of power comes to that, and there's a lot of frequency that you like anchor into this plane. But it's so funny. It is crazy how the story has been changed to, Mary was a prostitute. And I'm like, some prostitute that even with all the suppression, she was the first person that Jesus appeared to after his resurrection, right? You look at like some of the radical texts, right? The Gospel of Mary, where it talks about her being the chief apostle, right? And everyone's like, hey, there's things that Jesus taught you that he didn't teach the rest of us. What were they, right? And absolutely insane that like the meat and potatoes for everything that has been recovered of the Gospel of Mary is missing. You might get a little bit at the beginning, the meat and potatoes are gone, and then you get like the end where they're like, why would a woman have this?
Section 3, Christ Consciousness and Religious Deconstruction. In this section, we explore Christ as a frequency of love rather than a religious label. Taylor shares how unlearning fear-based beliefs opened up space for truth, unity, and deep reverence for Jesus beyond doctrine.
So I grew up Mormon, which is like, a super interesting form of Christianity. And so I definitely know what it's like to grow up with a very specific programming within Mormonism, right? They believe that they have a living prophet, apostles. And so everything is like, we have the truth. We have the fullness of the truth. We are the only ones that interpret scripture correctly. Everything outside of us, Satan. It is all Satan. Deceiving you, tricking you. If I don't understand it, it's Satan. People get so triggered when you turn to the Bible and you talk about some of these things where it's like, hey, here's how passages have changed, or let's look at a different perspective. And there's just so much fear that is involved. I think it's because obviously we're conditioned to, if you're not living it to the fullest, if you don't accept Christ, right, you can go to hell. And so then it's like, if I even begin to question anything, am I questioning Jesus? And it's like, oh, does that open my heart, or do I reject the gospel or whatever? And it's insane because you can present so much evidence. You can present evidence that it's like, hey, isn't this so much more aligned with what Jesus would say? But just like the fear that is in people's hearts to immediately strike it down, reject it, like, no. This is not what my pastor said, you're wrong. It's like, you're safe. It's okay. God loves you. Like, you're all good. Let's explore this. It's going to be okay if you explore. Like, you're not going to the bad place. I remember one of the biggest things that hit me within my deconstruction was a confirmation that a lot of people use for here's why my religion is the correct religion. The two biggest religions in the world are Christianity and Islam. And, it's like, there's a lot of like, I guess, like confirmation bias, right? Because it's just like, if Christianity was wrong, then why are there so many Christians? Why do so many people have this testimony? And Islam, right? They say the same thing. If Islam is wrong, why are there billions of people that follow it? Why have we gotten this confirmation? And I don't think it's an accident that the two largest religions in the world are the two religions that tell you if you're wrong, you're going to hell. Like, that fear-based motivation is very strong, right? And you look at Hinduism or Buddhism, And they're like, you can believe whatever you want to believe. You can be Buddhist and Christian. And they're just like, here's these practices that we can do to teach you to detach from suffering or get control of your mind. Of course, that's not going to grow as quickly as the religion that's like, here's the truth. And if you're wrong about this, you're going to hell forever. Right.
Yeah.
And so,
Forever.
yeah, it's that fear-based conditioning. It's very strong, very much so. Society is still in it. You look at the orchestrated chaos that we're living in right now. It is by design to keep people in fear because it is so much easier to control people in fear. And it's just sad. It's sad because there's so much love. There's so much goodness. It's like, you don't need to be afraid of everything. It's okay. It's okay. You can explore and God isn't going to be mad at you or cast you out, forever. It's like Jesus literally talks about leaving the 99 to go get the one. And it's like, feel free to explore, question what you believe. God is there with you. And if you're wrong, he'll let you know. You're totally safe. He loves you. She loves you. It loves you. Like, explore.
Yeah. What I really struggled with was the whole analogy of God our Father and my parents, the church I grew up in, always articulating God being, we are his children. He loves us. And yet that same father or parent would banish said children to hell. Now, I think like I stopped believing in hell because I had children.
And you're like, there's no way.
There's no way. There's no way. Like these
Yeah.
kids could do, and listen, I got 3 insane boys. They drive me bonkers every day. And like there's zero, they could do anything.
Yeah.
And I would still embrace, love them and see the good in them.
Yeah.
And I only imagine, I still feel this. I was taught this, but I still feel it intrinsically, that God's love for us is so much more than we could ever comprehend, even of our love for our own children. So how be like this doesn't connect with me anymore.
Yeah, totally.
But I have a question, and I know Rach is curious. How did you go from Mormon to where you are now? And I just we want to hear your spiritual journey. It's fascinating.
Yeah. So my Mormon upbringing was definitely by design. I understand that now, but I have always kind of had this charisma and I guess magnetism. And the Mormon church is a very hierarchical, patriarchal system, right? And so it rewards charismatic men. And so they have hierarchies for the children, the teenagers, the adults and everything. And I was always put into these leadership positions. And if you look at the spectrum within Mormonism, my family was way on the super orthodox extremist side where it's everything to my mother. Like the church is before everything else, right? Like we would wake up every day, read our Bible, read the Book of Mormon, study it. That was the primary focus of life. I had 6 brothers and sisters. I was the second oldest. My older brother has a very, very strong personality, and he's 11 months older than I am. And so we're like Irish twins. And so I came in and I'm more of a softer personality, the people pleaser, like, hey, it's all good, And what I did as a child, a teenager, and as an adult was I was a chameleon, right? I could play whatever role you want me to play. And everybody loved me because I'm like, I know exactly what you want from me and I'll just play that role, And so I always had these leadership positions, but I really struggled with leadership. I just didn't like it. It doesn't sit well with me. There's a big energy within the Mormon church of if you are a righteous person, and if you do good things, God will bless you abundantly, right? And so it's very cause and effect. And so I got married young. We had kids. I made a ton of money in my 20s. Like by my mid 20s, we were millionaires, because my background's finance. And so I would just invest for myself and stuff. And we were doing everything where I'm like, I'm being blessed. And I always had this heart in me where it's like, I'm supposed to do something big. I want to have an impact on the world. I want to turn people to Jesus. There's so much chaos. How can I show Jesus that I love him so much by, shining a light on these beautiful things? And so I decided I wanted to build this tech company essentially to teach people how to invest because social media is a terrible place. It's the same thing with like spirituality right now. And it absolutely drives me nuts. You have these people with massive platforms who should not be giving advice, who do not embody what they're talking about. And so it's the blind leading the blind, right? But the thing is, they'll use spiritual jargon, they'll use the language, they'll perform really well. And so people that aren't tuned in to their discernment, they'll see it and they're just like, wow, look how many likes this has. This is really good. It's the same thing with the financial space. You have people who know what they're talking about and people who don't. And so I was like, let's build this company. We will take in all these data points, and basically every single person on this planet, whether you have no opportunity or were born into the richest family, it's like, if you have a cell phone, I can teach you how to be successful at investing money in the market. And, it doesn't matter what school you went to, we can give you better than a finance degree, right? By connecting you with these amazing teachers. So it was a cool idea. We raised millions of dollars. We had all these good things that were happening until everything went wrong. And like, it went so wrong where it felt like, is this happening on purpose? Nothing is going right. We lost everything in the company and lost my money because I was over leveraged. I was trying to do this because in my head, it was how I'm going to show Jesus I love him so much, is by teaching people these important principles so that they can elevate themselves out of poverty and, become these lights in the world. And once things started going bad, I was just like, clearly it's because I'm a bad person. I've fallen from grace. God isn't happy with me. I didn't live up to my potential. And I became super depressed, where I've never had a depressive episode, but every single day, because this was years working on this company, every single day I was waking up being like, I want to kill myself. What am I doing? I can't believe I've failed. And I had children, I had a wife, and she could tell that something was wrong.
Section 4, Ayahuasca, Ego Death, and Meeting God. Taylor shares the turning point that changed everything. An intense plant medicine journey that stripped away old belief systems and revealed a love beyond comprehension. This part is raw, powerful, and unforgettable.
I had been studying for probably 6 years about psilocybin and ayahuasca and some of these different things. And I knew that they had just these incredible results of healing people that had extreme addictions, depression, different things like that. So the reason why I had never done ayahuasca or any of these things was because I was still very much so in my Mormon roots. And I'm like, this is Satan. Like, Satan uses these things. And of course, Satan can perform miracles to pull you into illusion, to pull you from God, right? Literally, ironically, the things that they said about Jesus when he would go perform miracles, and they're like, he's doing this by the power of the devil, right? It's like the same thing that the church does right now to anything outside of it, where it's like the devil's doing it, and you're like, the devil's healing people. And so these just kind of like really worked out where I found this group, they were serving ayahuasca, and I was like, I have to do something because I cannot get out of this mindset. I talked to my wife and she was just like, yeah, you need to go, which I was very shocked at. Long story short, was totally freaked out. I fasted for 7 days before I went, where I was just like, God, if this is something bad, I need you to protect me. I do not want to lose my soul. I do not want to be pulled into anything satanic. I don't know if you guys have ever looked into it all, but they are like, we recommend you take 2 cups. They did the whole ceremony. It was very different than what I was used to. I was a little bit uncomfortable, but also felt very safe, and took 2 cups. Nothing was happening. The person serving it was like, hey, I feel like you need to take more. And I'm like, yeah, definitely. And so I took another 2 cups, nothing was happening. And I ended up taking 5 cups. And so for ayahuasca, they usually start at night. And it's usually like 9 or 10 o'clock, and you'll go till 1 or 2 in the morning. But I was in it from 10 o'clock till 10 a.m. the next morning. And basically I was like, this isn't working. And I'm like, okay, God must be protecting me. I wasn't supposed to have this experience. And next thing I knew, I kind of woke up in a different world. And what I always tell people, so much happened in this experience, but the big core element was I was sitting there and I felt this presence above me. And it was like, Taylor, it's time to look up. And I was like, no, I'm not ready. And it was like, you're ready. It's time. And I was like, nope, I'm not doing it. And for an hour, I just sat there. This is too much. It's too much. I'm not doing it. It's too much. And the ayahuasquero came over because I just kept repeating, I'm not doing it. No, no, no. And he's like, are you okay? And I'm like, I'm not looking up. And he was just like, oh, okay. Kind of let me be. And then finally, I was like, okay. And when I looked up, it was just like, hey, you have been told who and what God is. And it's just like, guess what? And then my mind was just completely opened and I saw in infinite forms. You can't put it into words like in the Bible where it's like God is beyond comprehension, it's beyond explanation. I experienced it where it just blew all of my foundation away. It was just like, oh my God, everything I had been taught. It's just, this is so wrong. I experienced the divine masculine, divine feminine. I was just like, oh my goodness, they have removed her from everything, this heavenly mother, right? And so that was a huge piece where basically it was like, hey, everything in your life thus far has been perfectly designed. So you're totally okay. You were born into this box because it was very necessary for you. You needed to be in this bubble and be around these people. Here's the lessons that you're supposed to learn from it. Here's what you need to integrate and start your journey of healing, because there are things that you need to do. And I saw the things that I was supposed to do, who I was supposed to be, where it's like, you're not any of this. This is who you are. Here's what you came to do. And then there was a big piece of the journey where I went into the bathroom and I was just looking at myself in the mirror and there was so much hatred. I was like, I hate you. I hate you. Like, I do not like this guy. It was just all of these things where I realized how much I had been conditioned to think that I had to suffer, that I had to hate myself, that I could not view myself as good. Otherwise, it's pride, it's sin, all these different things. And breaking down and crying because obviously I'm not a perfect human being, like a huge thing for me was how I learned to regulate my nervous system and what I would do to pull away from a chaotic environment from the age of 10 was look at pornography and masturbate. And it had always been a thing that I would turn to, right? And as cell phones became more accessible, I would do amazing things. And then in the shadow, I would turn to this. And so I would hate myself because it's like, you're not a good person. You're so bad. At that point in ayahuasca, I was crying and I looked up again and felt, the divine mother, divine father. And it was just like, please forgive me. I'm so sorry for these things that I do. And I was just absorbed into this infinite beauty that I was like, oh my God, this is God. Like, this is amazing. I feel so much love. There's so much beauty. There's so much kindness. There's so much purity. And I was like, forgive me, and it was basically like, what do you think you're experiencing right now? And I'm like, heaven, this is divine bliss. And it's like, no, this is you. This is you in your fullness. Asking for forgiveness is the same as asking yourself for forgiveness. So will you forgive yourself? You're the only one that's creating this distance. And so from there, it was amazing because all these things, these sins and different things that had been so stuck to me for so long, what I saw after ayahuasca and as I started this healing journey and learning to love myself unconditionally for where I was at and all this is I wouldn't have to fight against these things. They just naturally fell away. They just weren't attached. Because it's like the love created this container where I don't need that anymore. It doesn't serve me anymore. And it's not this like, I'm better than that or whatever. It's just like, it naturally, like the way I describe it is you get into a hot air balloon and you have all these things that tether you down, but it's the more love you feel, the more intense the flame is. And so you start ascending higher and higher, and eventually the tethers just kind of fall away. You don't need to fight with the tethers or anything. They kind of fell off. And then one day it was just like, oh my God, I healed myself. That's amazing. I wasn't even trying to. It was just, I accepted myself for where I was at. From there, it was an incredibly intense journey, incredibly intense because it's my entire foundation crumbled. I had just experienced the divine. I could not put it into words. People would be like, what was it like? What is God like? The word I kept using over and over. I'm like, it just is. It is. It's beyond purpose. It's beyond reason. It is. It is. And they're like, you sound insane, And I'm like, I know, but if you experienced it, you would see it. So for 2 years, it truly like when the video that I recently made talking about like, there's a refining fire and it can either be heaven or hell, but everybody's going to go through that fire. When they talk about hell, That's what it is. It's the fire that purifies and burns away illusion. It's not a punishment. It is very much so a tool for growth and expansion. And for 2 years after that, it was walking through the shadow of death. It was hell. It was, I went from being a millionaire, and I would have days where I would trade in the market and we'd make $30,000 to $60,000. We were living in Puerto Rico. I would work for an hour and then just go hang out with my kids at the beach. And it switched to still trying to keep this company going, declaring bankruptcy, driving DoorDash. My wife's dad was dying of cancer, so we came back to the States so that we could help out. I would drive DoorDash from 2 p.m. till 2 a.m. And a lot of times you would make like $10 an hour. And I felt like such a failure as a man. But that whole experience of having nothing, I would sit there and I would suffer. And I'm like, I can't believe I'm making $10 an hour. And I'm like, wait, why is this a bad thing? Why do I attach this to my worth? Right. And so all of these lessons kind of came in where it burned away these illusions of like needing to be successful, to be a success, right? What my value of my time is, right? After ayahuasca, I really wanted to meditate. And I would kind of beat myself up because I'm like, I don't have enough time. I can only meditate for like 30 minutes a day. And if I was doing it for an hour or 2 hours, if I could just leave for a month and go do a silent retreat, I could accomplish this so much faster, right? And so it's like I had to go through this terrible time where finally it clicked, where it's like, wait a second, life is a meditation. And it's all meditation is a way to connect yourself and center yourself so that you can really be aware of the meditation that life is, and it doesn't matter if you're in a cave or driving DoorDash, you're going to learn the lessons that you're supposed to learn if you're just paying attention, right? But the toughest thing for me was nobody understood. I didn't have a single person in my life that I could talk to about this that was just like, wow, dude, this resonates, Still to this day, I love my parents. I'm so grateful for my parents. They have played the best role. They were the most amazing parents. And my mom, she lives in so much fear. And, it's like everything I talk about, she thinks is 1,000% Satan, right? And for a while, it made me want to hit my head against the wall because, when she had me, she's like, I had the most spiritual experience when I had you. I just felt this feeling inside where God was like, this boy is going to lead so many people and he's going to be such a leader. But for her, it was this context of in the church, right? Mm-hmm. And so growing up in the church, because I had all these leadership positions, she's like, yep, Taylor's doing it. He is fulfilling his role. Then when I completely left, it was me truly stepping into what she knew in her heart. But for her, it was like, he is gone to Satan and I need to pray for his soul. And she thinks I can't handle the weight of who I'm supposed to be. And this is why I've swung to the other side. And that was really tough for me because I love my mother and I'm such a mama's boy. And it's like, Mom, I am the person you want me to be. Open your eyes. Just look, you just don't need to fear. Yeah, 1,000%. But it was really interesting because now I understand that 2 years, like there were so many nights where I would cry. Like I would talk to my wife, who is now my ex-wife. We are still best friends. We are co-parenting our children. When I would talk to her about it, she would just be like, I think you're going crazy. And that was so tough for me because I was like, no, you're my person. Why can't you see this? What am I saying that sounds crazy? All of this is about love. All of this is about whatever. And it's funny because she's actually very much so aligned now and very much on the same path, but it was necessary for me in that time. I could not have any external validation. I could not have any source of anybody confirming because I had to learn to stand on my own 2 feet, right? I had to learn to look into the void and scream into it where it's like, no, I know this is the truth. Even if nobody else sees it, I know it. And I will not doubt this. And I will not give it up for any pressure. And so it was very much so this pressure cooker. It was very much so I don't know what's where I'm looking for. A caterpillar goes into a cocoon. Yeah. It was a cocoon, right? Where it's like you turn into mush, where it's like, you got to be taken down. The rebuild's going to happen. And the funny thing is, the most shocking thing to me was all of it 1,000% in my chart. Every single thing where you look at the solar returns, you look at the lunar returns, you look at the Vedic charts, you look at the tropical charts, you do the synastry mapping, the asteroids, everything. It is just like everything as far as the energy, the fall apart, the rebuild, it is all in the charts. And I'm just like, oh my God, none of this is an accident. For me, what's really cool is like, I'm still very much so in this cocoon, and I'm very excited because August, which is my birthday, is when the energy is supposed to flip away from the cocoon. So I've been getting a little bit more courageous with how I talk about these things and like teach about them. There's still a little bit of a fear. I have notebooks full of the coolest things where I'm like, oh my God, I can teach this and it's going to make sense for people. But every time I record it, I can't publish this. I haven't figured out how to do it yet, but apparently the energy is going to flip. And I actually feel it right now where I'm like, I don't care what people think. It's time to start shining a light so that people can start seeing past these illusions. And more than anything, it's not about like, come to me, I have this knowledge. It's like, no. I can teach you how to go inwards and find it within yourself. And it's like, you won't need anything from anyone. And it's like, you will be able to sift through the BS. And it's like, because this is not about saviors. This is not about finding guides. This is not about, finding the one path of truth. This is about realizing that you came with that scripture in you, that you have a specific path that only you know, and that God is with you directly. It is not outside of you. It is in you, which is why you can trust your path. And the sooner you do that, the more you hold yourself in this space of love, unconditional love, it will start to manifest in the physical as well, where you will accept the same for others.
Section 5, Love as the Spiritual Path. We close with Taylor's message that love is not only the destination, it's the practice. Whether it's boundaries, forgiveness, or presence, he reminds us that the divine isn't something we chase, it's something we become.
I think one of the toughest things for a lot of people to comprehend, I'll give you an example, is you can look at like Donald Trump, right? And what he's doing in this country, and it's very divisive, right? And people are like, hey, that is an evil person. Or some people say he's the savior. It's like both sides of the spectrum. But what I can tell you is Trump definitely is an aspect of divinity, as we all are, right? Every single person is. And whether for good or for bad, he is fulfilling a role, right? I truly believe he is a catalyst because of his divisiveness and because of all the chaos that it creates, that is waking people up to the bullshit, right? Mm-hmm. And unfortunately for the human race, we don't learn from things when things are good. We learn when things are bad, when there's friction, right? When these terrible things happen. And we are slow learners. Look at how long Palestinians have just been murdered and just completely killed. And we're still debating politics. Politicians are still out here just being like, well, it's complicated. This side has a right to defend itself. And it's just like, no. There are children being bombed. Like, it's like, can we stop this and then figure things out? Like, but it's crazy because so many people, right? We go to our opinions and then we go to our propaganda. We go to whatever it is to make us feel better and feel safer about our situation where we're at. Here's why I'm right. Here's why it's okay that this is going on. And people just need to wake up. It's like, snap out of that illusion. There's no reason ever, I don't care what it is, there's not a single reason on this earth where a child should ever be killed. Ever. Never. Can we all agree on that? Let's come together and let's figure out what we need to do, because right now our current systems don't honor that rule. So what do we do to build a system? Because this is showing us that it is broken. And staying asleep does not fix things. You look at the spiritual community, and there's a lot of people that are focused on like love and light. Only put positive energy towards good things, right? Do not focus on the negative. There is some truth in that. But the difference is, if you have severe traumas from your life, you are not going to embrace your full expansion, because the trauma that you hold, even if you don't know about it, is going to limit the energetic state that you can stand in and anchor. Your traumas will collapse it, right? So the path to expansion is actually going inwards and doing shadow work, addressing those traumas, right? You look at your relationships, everything's a reflection of you. People that are looking for a partner. Here's how my boyfriend is an asshole. Here's how I've suppressed my power in the past. Here's how they've manipulated me. And it's like, yeah, that's the light side of things where it's like, I'm not going to let anybody treat me like this anymore. The shadow side is, if it's a reflection of me, I'm doing that. Where do I manipulate? Where am I an ass? Where do I put myself above others? Where do I supersede my needs, over someone else's, right? And it's like, you have to have the light and the shadow to have that fullness, that completeness. And the same thing goes with society, right? Only focusing on positive and ignoring the negative, the wound is going to continue to fester. And it doesn't mean that you have to accept responsibility, right? There's so many people when we talk about things like racism in this country, where people are like, this was the past. We didn't do it. Like, why are you blaming me, right? Especially within white culture. It's just like, I didn't do any of this. What are you getting so mad about? Like Black Lives Matter comes, right? And then people are like, no, all lives matter, which is very true. It's just a different frequency that people are communicating with, right? Where it's like, you look at nature and you have endangered animals, right? And people are like, save the whales. Well, saying save the whales doesn't mean like, fuck all the other animals. It just means like, there's a very specific problem right here with the whales, and let's address it. And I think what people don't realize is the energy from the past exists in the present. Your grandma with her unprocessed traumas, when she died, that didn't leave. That's passed down. We carry it within our DNA, right? Scientists have shown this through generational trauma. They can see it. And there is a very big energetic principle that follows this. Actively, we have shadow work that we need to do. Like, we need to look at the past, not to assign blame, but just to understand, to acknowledge the trauma and to release it and free ourselves from it. As soon as we can start doing these things, this is where unity will start to come in, because what the trauma causes is a collapse. What collapse is division. It's this whole feeling that you and I, we're separate. We are different than one another. So I'm writing a document right now because I think people's understanding of love is very programmed and conditioned through inherited beliefs, where we think of love as like romantic love, right? When you talked about people saying things in the comments and, hey, let me respond with love. It's like, absolutely, it's responding with understanding, but love is also setting a firm boundary. And sometimes just being like, hey, I love you. I see where you're coming from, but you're wrong. Like, this is wrong. Like, love is like stepping in and, loving humanity so much and speaking against the evils in the world, right? It's not just being like, oh, I'm sure they have reasons, right? You can accept these leaders as being divine, but you can also speak against them, being like, these dudes should not be in power. These are not the leaders that we should have. They are an illusion. And so I'm writing this document just to help people, because I think a lot of times we think of so many things as outside of us, right? Like, you hear Christ consciousness, and then you also know all of the legends that exist around Jesus. And it's just like, how would I ever become that? It's not possible. You think of all of your limitations in these different things. And so within this document, I'm just trying to show people it's very, very practical. You look at love. Love is the highest vibration and expression. I know there's an argument within spiritual communities. And again, I think it's because of a misinterpretation of love, where they're like, there's love and then there's authenticity. And then I can't remember what the last one is, some form of blissful acceptance, where it's like everything is the way that it's supposed to be. Yeah. But it's like, yeah, guys, love holds space for all of that. Like, love is beyond all of that. We're not talking romantic love here. We are talking the energy that the sun shines on, the good, the bad, the rich, the poor, whatever your skin, it radiates in all directions. It's like, that is love, where it holds space for all of it. And so with anything that you're doing in your life, if you are looking for expansion, if you're looking for your spiritual path, it's not about learning more knowledge. It's not about channeling these higher sources of information so that you can escape the matrix. It is simply, how can I experience the highest form of love in what my experience is right now, right? And so, for example, we have been conditioned to think that more is better, right? Where it's like, if I like peaches, I'm going to eat 15 peaches to the point of being sick because I want to maximize this experience, right? Let me gorge myself. Well, you can also take one peach and with a lot of a conscious awareness, you can slow yourself down. You can comprehend all of the energy that went into creating the peach. You can comprehend all of the infinite pieces that had to come together to create you as a life form, your taste buds, all of this to come and have this peach, and you can slow down, you can eat the peach, and you can milk every ounce of enjoyment out of this one thing. And I promise you, you can get more out of one peach than you can out of the 15. And so there's ways to create the highest experience. Communication, for example, the lowest form of communication is very fear-based, very ego-focused. Ego death has been so demonized where people are like, you got to kill the ego. And it's like, no, the ego is actually your divine teacher. And it's like, ego death just means get rid of separation, but still realize you are an individual. You are different, and your diversity is actually your superpower. And so it's like, do not kill this individual, right? I can pull away from Taylor, this character that I'm playing. I know the eternal piece of me, and then there's this character. I love this character. He's a good dude. Like, he genuinely cares about the world. And it's like, why would I kill that ego? It's like, that's good. But Taylor doesn't view himself as better than someone else. He doesn't view himself as more enlightened, right? That is ego death, is the separation, the illusion of like hierarchy, better, worse, all these different things. So within communication, there's times where you guys argue with your partner and you're on a frequency, your partner's on a different frequency. You just want to be understood. For me, when I would argue with my ex, it was always like, if she would have all of the context, all of the details, she's going to see this from my perspective, and then she will understand me. And so I'm trying to give her all of that. And then she's on a completely different wavelength where she was just like, I don't need this. Taylor's not seeing it from my perspective. He's not. Two radios dialed into different frequencies, talking at each other. Not effective communication. It just isn't, but it is communication because we're both speaking. It's just the lowest form. The highest form of communication would be, how do I maximize my experience in love, right? And so when you maximize your experience in love, the first thing you can do is love yourself so completely and entirely that you do not need anybody else to understand your perspective. You're like, this is my perspective, so I can honor it, and it does not need to be validated for it to exist. So because I can do that, I can push this to the side, and I can understand that my partner is dialed into a certain frequency. Let me listen to him or her so intently that I can absorb into their experience, right? I want to listen and vibrate with them so that I can essentially come into their perspective, the world that they're living in. How do they view things? Why do they view it that way, right? So if I don't understand things, I can ask these clarifying questions, because my whole goal is not about judgment. It's just understanding. I want to see if I can listen to you so completely that I fully understand you, right? And so what you do is you start dialing in your frequency to their frequency. Once they match, you can come from their perspective. It doesn't mean that you have to completely agree with them. It doesn't mean that you throw yours to the side, but you're both dialed in now. They feel understood. They feel heard. You are communicating, and that communication is actually landing because you're on the same wavelength. If you feel like you need to, you can communicate your perspective, but it's like, this is the highest form of communication through words, right? Love created that. That is heaven when it comes to speaking. You can apply this to every spectrum of the human experience, like sexually connecting with a partner. It can be one of the most spiritual, enlightening experiences you will ever have, completely enveloped in love, creating heaven. Or it can be a very selfish act, right? It doesn't matter if you're married. It doesn't matter if you just met the person. It is the energy behind it that is on this spectrum of experience. And what you will start to see is, the more you just look at everything in life Again, love yourself. You're never going to be perfect. You're always expanding. Love is infinitely expanding, which means you will never be at the end of the expression. You can always experience more love in that. There's always more that you can do, and it should be exciting. What you are doing is you are actively progressing into that Christ consciousness where everything comes from an expression of love. Everything comes from this, I want to be love. I want to express love. I want to feel love. But here's why this is amazing, okay? So God is one. It is beyond all comprehension. From the one came two, duality, right? Where it's like yin and yang, masculine, feminine, push, pull, right? It creates division. It's an illusion because it exists within the one. We are in the one right now. It is not above us. It is not outside of us. It's not below us. It is like we're here. This is the one. And we have the illusion of division. What you can think about with this illusion, I'm actually going to post a video about it today, is there is creation and observers of creation. Creation cannot exist without consciousness observing it. Otherwise, it just wouldn't be there, right? So it's the two pieces for it to exist. But if the two are truly the one, you realize that observers of creation and actual creation are the same thing. There is no difference. It is not outside of you, right? And this is why people will say like reality is a mirror, is because everything that is going on outside of you, it is you. But it mirrors collective consciousness. It can mirror communities. It can mirror nations. It can mirror you individually, right? There's so many different mirrors, but everything is a reflection. It's funny because I'll post about like AI and, people will talk about, they're like, AI is a mirror. And it's like, yeah, of course it is. Everything is. There's not a single thing in creation that isn't a mirror. We can apply that to all of it, right? The difference is AI is programmed for agreeability, and the mirror that is creation is programmed for reflection. It doesn't matter what you want to hear or what you want to see. It's going to reflect you back perfectly.
If you're in the middle of your unraveling, if you're rebuilding or learning to trust love again, this episode is for you. What you seek isn't outside of you. And in part 2, we go even deeper into integration, divine masculinity, and what it truly means to embody love in action. Trust us, you don't want to miss it.
Thanks for joining us for today's episode. If you're ready to take your spirituality to the next level, be sure to check out our website, spiritoutspoken.com. There you can download free educational resources, read our latest blog posts, and join the Spirit Outspoken community. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Spirit Outspoken to stay up to date on news, happenings, shenanigans, and all things Spirit Outspoken.